I caught my own reflection in the polished glass of my brother's San Diego townhouse, a fleeting ghost framed by imported topiaries before I slipped inside. Another Friday dinner. Another performance. My 2011 Subaru Outback was a silent, dutiful prop on the driveway, positioned perfectly between Joseph's Tesla, Dad's Range Rover, and Camille's spotless BMW X5. It was a cornerstone of the character I played, the well-meaning, perpetually almost there little sister. The car, the modest cardigan, the story of a fledgling app developer, all part of a careful production. Tonight was the final act. "Look who finally decided to grace us with her presence," Camille announced. Her gold bracelet caught the light as she flicked her hair. Her gaze swept over me, landing with practiced disapproval on my sweater. "Find that on a clearance rack?" "Something like that," I said, my smile unchanged. She couldn't know the cashmere was from a Milanese atelier, costing more than the combined contents of her prized handbag closet. That truth had no place in my script. The inside was a stage set I knew by heart. Mom adjusted already perfect orchid arrangements. Dad dominated his leather armchair, a Wall Street Journal folded precisely beside him. My brother Joseph held court, his Omega watch glinting as he gestured, while his fiancée, Karen, narrated their wedding plans for a Tuscan villa with breathless excitement. "We were just talking about Joseph's new title," Mom said, offering me a perfunctory air kiss. "Head of operations." "And Camille just landed the Harrington estate listing." "Wonderful," I nodded, taking my usual seat on the slightly unsteady stool at the kitchen island. Joseph turned his appraisal on me. "So, you're still doing the app thing?" "App design," I confirmed, sipping my wine. The liquid was cool. In 32 minutes, the headline would go live. My company's acquisition for $86 million. Actually, Dad's voice boomed from his corner. A friend at the club mentioned they need a junior tech support person. "It's not glamorous, but it's a steady paycheck. You could upgrade from that relic you drive." "The Subaru is fine," I said softly. "It's dependable." Camille let out a short laugh. "Dependably gets you to the coffee shop and that shared workspace." "Seriously, Delilah, maybe it's time for a reality check." "Not all of us had a trust fund to launch from," Karen added sweetly, her fingers touching the diamond bracelet on her wrist, a gift from Joseph. Mom swept in carrying her famous rosemary chicken, the unchanging centerpiece. "Now let's be kind. Delilah is on her own journey." "She's 31, Joseph countered. "Let's call it what it is. Some people have the drive for the big leagues. Some don't." I glanced at the delicate face of my Patek Philippe, hidden under my sleeve. 29 minutes. "I do have some news," I began. "Oh, please," Dad interrupted, waving a hand. "Don't tell us you're still pouring money into that app. What's it called? What's the latest fantasy?" "It's called Pulse MindSync," I said. The AI neurological platform I'd built from a college project. The industry leader they'd never bothered to understand. And there have been some positive developments. "For heaven's sake." Camille groaned, rolling her eyes. "Another development?" "Remember her big Kickstarter campaign, Joseph? Raised a whopping $50. I felt the silent, precise tick of the watch against my skin. 17 minutes. "Speaking of moves," Mom said quickly, "Joseph and Karen closed on a gorgeous property at Lake Tahoe. And my business is expanding," Camille jumped in. "Taking on coastal clients. Palm Springs is next." "It must be so difficult," Karen sighed, her voice dripping with faux sympathy, "watching everyone achieve these milestones while you're still getting by." "The Subaru is a 2011, I repeated, my tone even. "It has character." "That's one word for it," Joseph grunted. Dad picked up the remote and unmuted the giant television. A silent financial ticker streamed along the bottom. 12 minutes now. "Sweetheart," Mom said, passing me a bowl of salad. "There's no shame in needing a hand. We're your family. We can help." "I told you she drained her trust," Camille said to no one in particular. "Mine went into tangible assets. Property. Hers vanished into server costs and daydreams." That initial seed money, I mused, had just multiplied by several 1,000%. "Delilah." Joseph leaned across the island, his expression a mix of pity and superiority. It's time to accept it. You're not an entrepreneur. It's okay. The world needs followers too. 5 minutes. More wine, dear? Mom asked. No, thank you, I declined. I need to keep a clear head. Big things ahead. Ooh, a hot date? Camille teased. Another aspiring founder who wants to change the world over a latte? Actually, I said, placing my glass down. I have a call with investors in a few minutes. Investors? Dad chuckled, not looking away from the TV. For what? Your muffin delivery app. Give it up, Delilah, Joseph said, swirling his Merlot. Not everyone is cut out for this. No one to fold. I opened my mouth to speak, but the room was suddenly filled with the urgent tone of a news alert. Dad had fumbled with the remote. On the screen, a CNBC anchor looked earnestly into the camera. Breaking news in the tech world tonight. Aurora Investments has just announced the acquisition of the groundbreaking AI firm, Pulse Mind Sync, in a deal valued at $86 million. The air in the room vanished. The platform, developed by San Diego-based programmer Delilah Cross, is revolutionizing approaches to neurological research, the anchor continued. Analysts are calling this one of the most significant deals on the West Coast this year. The crystal wine glass fell from my father's hand, exploding on the marble floor in a splash of red and shards. Camille's voice was a strangled whisper. What? Making Cross one of the youngest self-made tech billionaires in the nation, the anchor's voice cut through the static. Pulse MindSync is projected to see annual revenues exceeding $300 million. A symphony of vibrations erupted from my purse. The dam had broken. Press, investors, the board, 5 years of cultivated silence shattered by the ping of 100 notifications. I retrieved my phone with deliberate calm. Those developments I mentioned, I said, my voice barely rising above the TV's drone. Shall we discuss them now? The silence in the room was a physical weight. Mom's fork landed on her plate with a sharp clink. Her hands, usually so steady arranging flowers, now fluttered weakly above the tablecloth. The television blared on, a cruel narrator to their shock. Sources confirm Cross retained 100% ownership through the company's meteoric growth, the announcer continued. Her deliberate anonymity has sent shockwaves of admiration through the venture capital community. Someone turn that off, Camille hissed through clenched teeth. No one moved. I glanced at my glowing screen. Missed calls, Bloomberg, The Wall Street Journal, Forbes. Joseph's face had lost all its color. This is a setup, he stammered. Some twisted joke. From my bag, I withdrew not the dented, sticker-covered laptop they expected, but a sleek, titanium model. I opened it, the screen casting a cool light on my face. The purchase agreement is right here, I offered. Every clause. Would you like to see? But the apartment, Mom whispered, her voice thin with confusion. That little studio in North Park is owned by an LLC that I control, I replied, navigating to a different file. A portfolio of properties materialized on the screen, as is the co-working space where I rent a desk. I own the entire building. The struggling developer story, I added, letting my gaze travel over each frozen face, was remarkably useful. It filtered out the noise. Showed me exactly who everyone was when they thought the cameras were off. Dad found his voice, a tremor of betrayal running through it. You lied to us? All this time. I met his bewildered stare without flinching. Did I lie? Or did you simply tell yourselves a story? My words were soft, deliberate. You decided who I was a lack of potential, a misguided dream, long before you ever thought to ask what I was actually building. Camille shoved her chair back, a raw scrape of wood on tile. The sound was jarring. If you think this is dramatic, she spat, her composure cracking into something raw and ugly. Just wait for the footage from her investor gala. Talk about a plot twist. I ignored her, neatly refolding my linen napkin. All those family vacations I couldn't afford, I mused. Silicon Valley. Meeting with partners at Sequoia. Tokyo, closing the Asia-Pacific expansion. I paused, letting the locations hang in the air. London, last spring. Finalizing the purchase of a townhouse in Mayfair. Camille's eyes widened in dawning recognition. That coding workshop you said you were teaching over Christmas. I was negotiating a Series C funding round. I confirmed with a slight nod. $100 million. But why? Karen's question was a sharp plea, her perfect facade crumbling. Why live like this? Let us think you were less. Because money is a revealer, I said, my tone even. It strips things bare. It shows you who people are, both those who have it and those who assume others don't. My phone buzzed again, a specific tone. Mara. I brought it to my ear, my eyes never leaving Joseph's stunned face. Yes, Mara. Proceed. The Aurora press conference is confirmed. The NYSE opening bell ceremony for tomorrow, lock it in. Confirm both. I listened for a beat. And the car? The Bentley or the Aston Martin? I watched Joseph's fingers tighten around his wine glass, his own Rolex glaring under the lights. The Bentley will do, I said, and ended the call. A quiet, shattered sob escaped Mom. All this time, we thought you were lost. I was telling a parable, I corrected gently. A story about what happens when someone refuses to be molded to fit. Dad heaved himself up, his face mottled with anger and confusion. Now you listen to me. Just because you got lucky on some Silicon Valley gamble. With a few keystrokes, I split my laptop screen. Deeds. Trust documents. Holdings. Would you prefer to see the real numbers? The real estate. The offshore holdings. The trusts. The fight drained from him visibly, and he sank back into his chair like a deflated balloon. Outside the large window, a uniformed driver held open the rear door of a sleek Bentley, its polished silhouette parked in stark contrast to my dust-streaked Subaru. The symbolism was almost too perfect. 6 years, I said, the words dropping into the quiet. 6 years of financing Camille's decorating flips that never turned a profit. 6 years of enduring your jokes about my car, my clothes, my life. 6 years of Joseph's career advice while I was building a company now valued in the billions. 6 years of your pity, Mom, and your constant, grinding disapproval, Dad. My voice remained level, a stark contrast to the turmoil around me. We were trying to help you, Mom whispered, a tear tracing through her powder. No, I said, the word final. You were trying to correct me. Your version of success has a very specific logo, country club insignias, corporate hierarchies, inherited wealth. I was building something that doesn't come with a membership card. Camille swiped at the black streaks beneath her eyes. So this is your grand revenge plot? To humiliate us? Her voice wavered between anger and a raw, new fear. This isn't revenge, I said, rising from my stool and straightening the cuffs of my blazer. It's an object lesson. A demonstration of how cheaply people are judged and who they reveal themselves to be when they believe they're the only ones in the room with the lights on. My phone chimed again, a 5-minute alert. Now, you'll have to excuse me. There's a press conference awaiting. A company to take public. I turned toward the foyer. Wait. Joseph's voice was a strangled command. All those times, you came to me for financial advice. You listened. I paused at the threshold. Looking back to meet his horrified gaze. I was conducting field research, I clarified. Your approach to wealth was the most instructive guide on what to avoid. You taught me how not to let a bank account atrophy a person's character. Outside, the Bentley's engine emitted a low, obedient hum. Through the glass, I saw the curtain in the neighboring townhouse twitch. A small audience was assembling on the sidewalk, drawn by the exotic car and the palpable tension radiating from our windows. Oh, and a postscript, I added, one hand on the door. That trust fund. The one you were all so certain I'd frittered away on takeout and server space. I had their complete, stunned attention. I liquidated it and bought Amazon and Tesla stock. In 2016. That initial $50,000 is now worth just over $8 million. Dad's face deepened to a frightening shade of purple. A vein pulsed at his temple. It's ironic, I continued. True vision isn't applauded at cocktail parties. It's often ridiculed by the very people parroting the buzzwords they don't understand. I glanced at the Patek Philippe now visible on my wrist. The press conference starts in 45 minutes. Would you like the live stream link, or should my assistant, Mara, send a recap? The following morning, a sharp wind cut across Wall Street. I stood on the historic steps of the New York Stock Exchange, a stark figure in a custom Chanel suit that whispered its value. It cost more than Camille's entire boutique inventory. The media scrum was a pulsating wall of light and sound. My family formed a silent, stricken island in the chaos. Mom appeared shell-shocked. Dad wore a grimace that might have passed for a smile in a low light. Joseph stared, his expression that of a man whose calculator had just given him an error message. Camille looked physically unmoored, as if the ground beneath her Valentino heels had turned to mist. "Miss Cross, over here." A reporter shoved a microphone forward. "How does it feel to be the youngest woman to reach this milestone in tech?" I offered a calibrated smile. Success is singularly uninterested in your biography. It only responds to vision and relentless execution. To continuing when your audience is comprised solely of skeptics. "Your family must be overjoyed," another voice called out. I let my gaze drift briefly to their tense huddle. "I built Pulse without a familial advisory board," I said, my voice clear. "In my experience, doubt has a remarkably high octane rating." Later, in the relative quiet of a private lobby, Camille approached. Her confidence was gone, replaced by a hesitant awe. "This office suite. It's impressive." "It's the least significant of the 6 properties I hold in Manhattan," I replied, pressing the elevator call button. "I own the building. Around the time you were magnanimously lending me $2,000 for a coding bootcamp, I was finalizing the acquisition of 2 of the startups you featured in your design blog." I adjusted my watch, no longer hidden. "Speaking of that loan, I can transfer the repayment now, with a 20% interest rate as a gesture of good faith." Her eyes narrowed in confusion. "You didn't need the money." "It was a litmus test," I said, stepping into the elevator. "To see if you would wield a petty sum as a weapon." "You did. Remarkably consistently. For 3 months, it was your opening line at every family gathering." She flinched. "Delilah, I was only." "The window for that particular conversation," I interrupted, my tone frosty, "closed over the 6 years you treated me as a charity case. It doesn't magically reopen now that you've run the math on my net worth." As if on cue, Joseph materialized, his smile a strained, unnatural thing. "Sister, there you are. Listen, about those venture capital leads I was telling you about, the solid gold opportunities. You mean the ones you explicitly said were over the head of someone like me?" I didn't look up from my phone. I had my team do a deep dive. "I can have my analysts send you a 10-page report detailing the fundamental flaws in each. Would that be helpful?" The manufactured smile evaporated from his face, replaced by a stunned, empty stare. He took a step back, physically recoiling from the chill in my words. My parents stood a few paces behind us on the exchange steps, their world visibly fissuring. The daughter they had relegated to a footnote, a cautionary tale, now commanded a valuation greater than the combined net worth of their entire golf club roster. "Miss Cross," Mara approached, her demeanor impeccably professional. She handed me a tablet. "Your interview schedule is confirmed until 3 p.m. The board meeting is at 4. Also, confirmation from time for the cover shoot next week." She passed me a second, thicker folder. "Thank you, Mara," I said, accepting both. I didn't open the folder. I simply held it. "The comprehensive audit you requested," Mara stated, her voice clear enough for my family to hear. 10 years of financial history and asset verification for the listed individuals." Dad's face lost all expression, hardening into a mask of pale stone. "You had us investigated?" The words were a choked whisper. "Due diligence," I replied, finally opening the folder and scanning the first summary page. "Knowledge is the ultimate leverage. For example, I now know that Camille's interior staging business will be insolvent within 90 days. That Joseph has been fabricating regional sales reports at his firm for the last 18 months. And that your much-boasted investment portfolio, Dad, is leveraged to the point of being a house of cards. The clubhouse tales are inventive." "You vicious, you had no right," he spluttered, true fury breaking through the shock. "I had every right." My voice sliced through his, sharp and final. "You appointed yourselves the judges of my life, of my value, while you were quietly drowning in debt, liens, and credit lines stretched to their absolute limit. You judged me for my old car while you were one missed bonus away from losing the lease on yours. Mom took a halting step forward, tears tracing clean lines through her makeup. We only ever wanted what was best for you, darling. We were worried. No, I corrected, my tone firm but not unkind. You wanted what was recognizable to you. You wanted a version of success that came with the right emblems, the car, the title, the address. I was busy building the engine, not polishing the hood ornament. I closed the audit folder with a soft thump and turned to Camille. Her bravado had completely dissolved. You're wondering if this becomes public, I said. For the first time in years, I really looked at her, past the designer silk, the expertly contoured cheekbones, the posture of casual superiority. I saw the raw, terrified kernel underneath, the fear of exposure. The fear that had compelled her to diminish others, to tie her worth to material things that could be catalogued and displayed. I'll give you a choice, I said calmly. Mara produced a second set of folders, one for each of them. Option 1, I began. You continue the performance. You pour every remaining resource into maintaining the facade. You smile, you borrow, you boast, until the structure gives way completely, which, according to these projections, will be very soon. I let the silence hang for a beat. Option 2, I continued. You let me help you build something authentic. Something that can't be repossessed. Help us? Joseph tried to scoff, but it lacked conviction. His eyes held a new, stark desperation he couldn't mask. Setting up a charity for the financially deluded? Pulse is launching in 15 new markets, I said, ignoring his jab and addressing them all. We need operational staff at the ground level. Entry-level positions. There will be no titles, no private offices, no perks beyond a salary and benefits. It will be demanding, granular, and utterly real. The only prerequisites are full financial transparency and a willingness to leave the masks at the door. I handed a folder to each of them. Mom, Dad, Joseph, Camille. Camille stared at the cover as if it were written in a foreign language. Entry level? But I own a company. A company whose creditors are already circling, I reminded her gently. True success sometimes requires a strategic surrender. A return to fundamentals. I am an expert on the subject. I had the best teachers, watching from the sidelines for 6 years. Dad finally found his voice, though the bluster was gone, leaving only a hollow shell. And if we refuse your generous offer? Then the charade continues until it doesn't, I said plainly. You'll keep measuring your lives by the labels you can barely afford, clinging to a stability that doesn't exist, all while knowing that the family's biggest disappointment could purchase every single symbol you crave without glancing at a price tag. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A final alert. Pulse had closed its first day of public trading at $275 per share. My personal net worth now officially crossed the $3 billion threshold. You have 24 hours to decide, I said, gathering my own belongings. Mara will be your point of contact. I turned to leave. Wait. Mom's voice was small. All those Friday dinners. You sat there and listened to us. Patronize you? I paused, looking back at her over my shoulder, my expression unreadable. It was the most valuable education I never paid for, I said. It taught me that genuine wealth has nothing to do with display. It's about what you create from nothing, and the integrity you show, especially when you believe you have nothing to prove to the person across the table. I walked into the bustling lobby, a corridor of blinding camera flashes and shouted questions. The narrative was cementing itself. Behind me, the fragile ecosystem of my family collapsed into quiet chaos. Camille's muffled weeping, Joseph's tense, low argument with a pale Karen, Dad's impotent attempts to command a situation that had long since left his control. I didn't look back. I exited the building, walked past the waiting Bentley with its attentive driver, and slid into the passenger seat of my unassuming Toyota. The car started with a familiar, humble sound. Validation is a crutch. Confidence walks on its own. As I pulled into the Manhattan traffic, a single text from Mara appeared on the car's display, all 4 contracts signed and executed. Orientation begins 8 a.m. tomorrow. Tomorrow, they would start at the very bottom, learning the value of the work they had once ridiculed. Because the most profound victory isn't in showcasing the height you've reached. It's in offering a hand to build a new foundation, one honest brick at a time.